drinks and then there's apples in there as well. Healthy and, you know,
So
you can have a cookie then an apple.
nobody leaves until all food is done. Is that right?
All right.
84 cookies.
With the arrival of Josh and JR, we have the J's in the room. The quorum.
You see my
So I've restarted the recording, so we're gonna. And most of what I'm about to say is for the YouTube viewers that will watch when I remember to post in the next week or 10 days. But welcome to the August meeting of MUGUT. We've gotten a quorum of board members and prospective board members. And so we're going to call it a good meeting. You show up, you're on the board. Yeah, there's lots of responsibility involved with being on the board. And I'm going to go around the room quickly, just so that those that are online or watching the recording will know to miss being in the room with some fun people. So Eric, Ron, Rusty, who has driven the furthest, because you've come from 20 years in the past, from Jackson Hole, Wyoming, which I frankly quite love. I think Jackson's fun. Christian.
I'm the most emotionally distant, so.
As well as the most emotionally immature next to me. Josh Cook and JR in the back.
I drove the shortest distance to get here.
You came across the freeway.
I did. I live just right down the street now. Yeah, looks kind of nice.
So we're excited to be here. We are going to plan following this meeting, those that want to stick around, we're going to plan a in-person get together for February. That we're going to do what I call SharePoint Saturday on Friday. You had a different name, Christian. What was your name?
It's just like M365 Utah.
Yeah, that's
Boring.
boring. Yeah,
So SharePoint Saturday on Friday.
that's mine.
That's the.
We can't say SharePoint Saturday, I don't think anymore, because isn't that a trademark or something? I don't know.
No, but Microsoft has the Microsoft Community Day, which is,
Yeah.
so like, nah.
So we'll do something. So following our meeting here, we'll sit around for a few minutes and put together the broad outlines of our to-do list to get that planning up and running. Any or all of you are welcome to stick around and eat cookies provided by Sovereign SP until we run out. Or we eat, the fewer Ron has to take home to eat himself. And so you would appreciate a little help. Next month, I think we have lined up something on the Power platform. I have not yet gotten that approved with the board, but I have a speaker that's willing to come and do that. And so that's tentative for next month. If you have something different or a better idea, let me know and we'll certainly do the old rock, paper, scissors and figure out what we're going to learn next month. As always, we are ever interested in hearing what you want to hear. So if you're watching this recording, because the idea of learning about Meta didn't excite you enough to be here in person or online, let me know what it is that you do want us to cover and we will cover that. We're very adaptable. We're very willing to cover just about everything. But Erik is here to tell us all about Meta. Works for a company called Helpshift. I'm sure he's going to work into his presentation a little bit about Helpshift because we're all curious about that. He has been in technology since the dawn of the dinosaur.
I believe that's true. Yes.
Which is almost as long as I have.
Yeah.
He's local here in Lehigh, and so he's come not as far as Ron, but farther than Josh.
Came all the way around the point of the mountain.
Around that magic point of the mountain. And we are looking for questions online or here in the room. Normally I would have my laptop in front of me so I could see the questions, but my laptop is over there running this screen. And so I will have no visibility into the meeting. So if you have a question, it is then incumbent upon you to go off mute and ask that question. And I would suspect based on comments that you've made that you'd rather have them do that immediately as opposed to waiting until the end of the meeting.
Yeah, this will be very interactive, the whole discussion, so.
And we don't have a ton online, and so Pete, that's you. We expect questions from you. All right, so with that, Erik, I'm gonna go drink my soda pop and
All
the
right.
meeting is yours.
All right, thank you. So super happy to be here. Christian and I know each other from a previous time. He contacted me, asked me to come and share some of my thoughts. Just a little bit about me. I've been in the industry not quite since the dawn of dinosaurs, but to give you an idea, I started with a little company that was out of Provo at the time called Novell, if anybody remembers the old Novell days. My first interview at that time, I remember walking in And I sat down and the question was, do you know what email is? Was the first question. The second question was, can you start tomorrow? Those were the two questions. And so I had to check on one of them. And the other one, I knew absolutely the answer was yes. So I had to check with my wife if I could work.
Low bar for their hiring practices.
And that's why at that time, it's just because they were coming out with a brand new email system called Global MHS. And they needed someone to actually run their internal system. And then ended up merging with another company out of this area called WordPerfect, who had this product called GroupWise. And it wasn't actually called, it was called WordPerfect Office. So I worked on that. That was interesting, but I saw another company out in Redmond that was coming up with something called Exchange. And I really liked what they were doing. So I moved over to Microsoft, spent 20 years working on Exchange, on Office 365, on Outlook, just all of that in that area. And all three of those that I worked on was as they were, so it was coming out. So is it not working or?
Well, I mean,
It says your mic's on, Kevin, but his isn't, so.
Yeah, mine's on mute because I'm trying to use the other one.
so can he hear, Eric?
Can't hear it. No,
You can't. Do I need to, if I stand over here, do you hear me?
you hear him now. I'll say something.
All right, oh yeah, of course.
It's the microphone's up in the ceiling.
Yeah, Microsoft should be up there. So-
Was he hearing me okay, Ron?
Were you hearing Kevin? Were you hearing Kevin when he was introducing things? No. So you gotta do that all over. You are the only person online, but it's good to know because he's recording this, so.
Turn yourself first.
I'm gonna.
You're, I guess you.
All right, can you hear me? Can you
I heard that.
You heard noise. Yeah, best technician in the world.
Yeah.
Okay.
How about that? Is that working for him right now?
Are you hearing anything?
All right, is he picking up anything now? Nothing whatsoever.
How about now?
So we could go over completely to mine and just just go mute and turn the speaker off.
So it's entirely, it's Bluetooth headset, it's the
Oh,
problem.
he's trying on his phone.
So go mute.
Okay, ask him if he can hear me now. Yeah, can you hear me now? I'm just talking right now. See if he can hear me now. Yep. Nothing? So it's got to be on his side because it was definitely coming out here. Yeah, you hear it. Yeah.
I'm saying it's up here since here. It says headset. Okay, I'll enter my.
Christian, can you still hear us now? Can you hear us now? All right. All right. So it is,
Everybody, so I think that.
yeah, that one up there is working. Yeah, it's that one up there. So,
Well, it's on my laptop right now. Let's try that one.
no, it was actually working. Christian was hearing it fine when you.
Now you are gonna have.
I hear all of it.
Are you still hearing? Still hearing okay?
Yep.
Okay.
I can hear everybody. I heard myself say yes.
Yes.
I heard myself just say that. And just that right now.
Yeah, there you go.
And I heard that, and I heard that. and I
Okay,
heard
one
that.
last. Are you still hearing it? Is it echoing in your head?
It is now, there's a delay, so yes.
But this mic, Kevin, is picking up everything.
Yeah. Well, I had it on my laptop for a minute, but it's back on that mic. And
So I'm not going to redo my intro. Like,
no,
Okay, I'm not going
and
to.
we're gonna leave this in just to prove that we care about the people that are online, even when the problem is on their end.
All right. So anyways, so I spent 20 years at Microsoft. About 5 years ago, I moved over to a company called Helpshift. You know, all of the times I was at Microsoft, I was on these groups that were starting up something. And so Helpshift, they were starting up this concept of having in-app customer service versus having to be able to go to a web or something like that. really loved the concept. And so I moved over and I'm now running product for them. And so that's what I'm doing. In the past year, we started moving this into the metaverse. And so that's that I'm going to talk about. I'm going to talk about more about the metaverse and kind of try and frame it how I would explain it to my family, because I actually have had several discussions about the metaverse with them. And like I said, this is going to be a discussion. So if anyone wants to participate or share, ask questions or whatever, but talk about like, what is the metaverse, how we got where it is, where we are today, where I think that it's going, what can we do to prepare for it, and some of the things that at Helpshift that we're doing around the metaverse. So hopefully you'll find this interesting, but I first wanted to talk about this is like, is the metaverse hype? Is it myth? Is it reality? You know, there's a lot of times when there's new technology coming out, these big companies will jump in and be like, oh yeah, this is the next big thing, and they'll throw all this money into it. And it's really because they're trying to drop business. In fact, and I had this conversation with my daughter about NFTs, and she was just telling me how stupid NFTs are. The fact you could spend $10,000 for a picture of a monkey that happens to be orange, you know, and you know, why is it worth $10,000 just because somebody thought it was? And there is a lot of stuff that I would say is hype, but there's some fundamental pieces when I look at the metaverse that is going to drive it forward. And these are kind of the three pillars that I see when I think about why would this technology move forward and why is it going to be a part of our future. And the first one is immersion. If you take a look at the technology over the past, couple of decades, the technology that has come out that has invited consumers to become more and more immersed, those technologies have succeeded. And that's kind of where mobile phones are right now, or how they become so pervasive, is because they create more and more immersion or immersive experiences. I have a data point up here that they're expecting that consumers will spend 3.7 hours a day in the metaverse, and you're like, how can that be? But then you see all the time that people are spending on the phone, and it actually makes sense. The second part is the blockchain is really interesting. The technology is interesting, but to me, what it does is it takes the control and the power that currently is centralized in these big, these big centers, whether it's Amazon or Microsoft or whatever. It takes that control and that power out, and it distributes it amongst the consumers. And that's a very powerful concept, that idea that you get into a distributed environment where things can be understood, they can be, they can be voted on or whatever. Like, there's this distributed nature to it, and that then gives freedom. And to me, that's going to be the second driver. And the third driver is that there's an economy behind it. There's a lot of money to be made here. And so you add those three together. You have immersion, you have personal freedom that comes with it that consumers want, and you have a lot of money underneath it. And so you put those three together, and you've kind of got a trifecta of a lot of value that can be added, which is why I can see that coming out.
Push back just a little bit in the
Sure.
form of a question. So I'm a huge gamer.
Yes.
I spent a lot of time looking at that, and VR technology for video games has been out for a while.
Yes.
And so I'm curious why you see the high immersion of the metaverse is going to be successful, whereas anybody who's at all familiar with the gaming space knows that VR games have pretty flopped.
Yeah.
Like really.
So
Yeah, I'll just say that my second life, like, I write about it on my MySpace page, if anyone wants to read about it.
So
These friends here.
So VR, and we'll actually have a slide about that, but let's talk about VR right now. VR as a technology is absolutely still emerging. It's not there. Like, if you were to ask, do I think people are going to be walking around like Ready Player One, where they have this thing on their head? It's just not there yet. That it's that comfortable. It still gets you. There's still a lot of things there.
Factor is still huge.
Yeah, there's the dizziness factor. There's things like that. But I come down to these two right here, right? And so there's a lot of money that's going to drive that, and the desire for this that's going to drive that experience forward. The other thing that you're going to see is a lot of increases in AR. Take a look at Niantic. They just came out with their ARDK, their alternate reality development kit that has come out. And so you're just going to see a blurring between all of this. Microsoft's HoloLens, which is all about AR. So So there's going to be,
Metaverse is gonna be more AR rather than.
I think the metaverse is going to actually be a combination of these. And they're going to be it's going to be mixed together. And that really is like when people came, when we were talking about cyberspace, right? Cyberspace, how you envisioned it is this, when it first came, they said, oh, cyberspace is going to be like this or that. What happened is cyberspace evolved over time to what it ended up being. And so when we think about the metaverse today, it's going to be something that evolves over time from where we are today. And there's metaverse technologies that we all use today. I guarantee it that you use some piece of the metaverse today.
It's kind of like NASA, you know, we're not gonna all have rockets in our backyard and be able to do, you know, fly to the moon and have a picnic and fly back. But all of that work, that effort is, there are hundreds and thousands of applications of technology that was developed because of that pursuit that affected.
And eventually we will be, you know, eventually we
Not
will.
in our lifetime.
Maybe not in our lifetime. Right. And that's kind of the point of when you look at these technologies, is it's this evolution. It's not like one day you wake up and you're in it. It's like the technology comes out and we're like, okay, how would we use it? How would this be part of us? And so you have to have a driving factor. If you didn't have these two, I would definitely say, well, VR is not gonna make it, but you've got these that are then driving the technology
I would
forward.
say there's a pretty big economy around the gaming.
Yes, of course, yes.
There's definitely money there.
Yes, yes. And
Look at what it is that it takes to build an immersive, high energy, low latency gaming experience.
And you compare that to what it takes to build a walk through a factory floor in a HoloLens.
Right.
And there's worlds of difference.
That's true.
And so we start with the use cases that are technically possible. We build up the technology so that eventually we can make Josh happy, but it's going to take a while.
And here's what's interesting. I'm going to actually bring up a slide about the history of this. Gaming has always consistently been the first ones to the, you know, to whatever
That's why I look
new
at
of the evolution, it's always been gaming.
digital economy stuff, that's all gaming.
It all starts as gaming. PC started as gaming,
Yeah.
you know, and it's I mean, what was the first big website? It was some hamster going.
So the gaming didn't start the PC revolution, gaming turbocharged it.
Yes,
Because the PC revolution started with, what was it? No, there was the calc. It was VisiCalc. Everybody got excited about VisiCalc because they could do their math on their desk.
that was,
And it's the same thing here because we start with the VisiCalc, which is the HoloLens operations or whatever.
Yeah.
And eventually it goes into turbo when it does get to gaming, but there's a groundwork that has to be laid.
let's actually walk through the history, because this is a great segue, because that was exactly why I brought it up here. You know, if you take a look at, you know, I have on here kind of some of the early adopters. Early innovators, that, you know, there had to be some base technology, you know, someone had to come out with the transistors and the PC and the things like that. But so you had the early innovators. On the top was the experience. So the PCs started to come out, you know, Apple II came out, and initially it was a lot of kind of hobbyists that were getting into it. But it's when VisiCalc got into it that all of a sudden businesses started picking up and saying, yeah, there's a huge value to this in the business. And then that kind of fed the PC evolution. On the bottom side, what was happening is that the networks were starting, you know, ARPANET came out, and then of course, then the internet came out, you know, 1990 with the first website. In fact, I remember seeing my first web page, and all of a sudden I was like, oh my gosh, this is going to change everything, because the fact that I can go and get data from anywhere in the world. And so at that point, then you had the emergence of the cyberspace, where people started saying, wow, we can actually do business here. We can actually, you know, trade things or share information from anywhere at any time. And so you kind of had these two that were going together. The cyberspace led to the cloud transformation. Well, if we can do web pages and transactions, what if we could do services? What if we could do, you know, data storage? What if we could do backups? What if we could do all of that? And so you had the cloud here. And then in the meantime, up here on the top, you've got the mobile revolution that's going on. So now you can see how here you've got now these devices that are designed to draw you in, that you can put in your pocket, and they're getting more and more powerful. So then the cloud transforms into, all right, cloud is great, but it's all centralized around these big services. Then comes the blockchain. which allows us to take these same type of technologies, but distribute it. And now share all of that kind of that horsepower and things across now the blockchains. Now you've got this plus the mobile revolution. That's putting everything together for a really interesting time, which we're getting into, which is of course what I call the metaverse evolution. And so it's not like, oh, one day we're going to be around having these goggles. It is going to be a natural evolution of the technologies that we have today that's going to be more immersive, that is going to be more free because of the blockchain, and it's going to be driven by an economy. And so that's kind of how I see that the metaverse is going to be that way, is it's going to be an evolution of where we are today, which is really, when I think about then how do we prepare for it, then we're here. It's us understanding where we are. That's actually helping us to prepare for where we're going.
So trying to understand that timeline, 5G launches 2019. So is it 2019 when Bill Gates put the COVID virus in 5G? Before that?
I'm not getting into any of those conspiracy theories about. But as always, Christian, I appreciate your input and your thoughtfulness into the conversation. So
These kinds of questions.
What does your crystal ball say about the cost of maintaining the blockchains? It seems like that's all we hear is the miners are going to go out of business, there's only so much flare gas in Wyoming to produce electricity.
So, there's different blockchain technologies that are out there. There's obviously some that are very complex, some that are easier, some that will be cheaper, depending on what you use for. I think that the blockchain needs to live. Blockchain technology needs to live. We need to get better at figuring out how to do the mining and things like that. And so there'll be some cases where you need a very robust, very expensive blockchain. There'll be other uses where you don't need to have such a robust, expensive blockchain.
And I would propose that a blockchain, the metaverse doesn't rely on blockchain technology at all. To me, they're different questions, right?
Yeah.
The blockchain democratizes the ability to store in a non-fungible matter data.
Yeah.
Right? And a metaverse is a presentation layer.
Yeah.
And so having NFTs or blockchain, it may or may not have an impact on the viability of the metaverse.
In my world, how I see the metaverse, I do see both of those working together. I see that there's an experience part of it, but I do see that the blockchain is another important part of it, because when I go into these experiences, I have to have a representation of myself and the assets that I own and the things that I can do. And in order to do that, I need a blockchain, because I need to be able to.
So the thing that a blockchain does is it allows us to store valuable information in a low trust environment. And the success of Twitter and Facebook and all these other places where we sell our personal information to access these spaces tells me that most people don't really care.
Yeah. So, and I think what's going to happen then is that we're going to end up with a hybrid model. Okay, there'll be some places where we'll be totally fine with having a federated service or a centralized. We'll be like, fine, Facebook, you can have this part of it, but there'll be other things where we'll say, no, we actually want to have a blockchain for this.
Yeah, so in the absence of a trusted resource to hold that information, then the blockchain becomes the answer.
Yeah.
There's a transaction specifically.
Yeah. When I look at the nature of, in fact, let me, you're kind of getting into this next slide exactly, but let me just give kind of a, what do I see as what is the nature of the metaverse? Because I don't see it as just VR or just as a blockchain. I see it as a combination. First, I see it as being a rich and immersive experience. It has to be something that invites the general population into it. Otherwise, it's not going to be able to continue to live and grow. It has to be a huge enabler. And that's where the blockchain becomes. It's got to be an enabler of humans, for humans to be able to do more things, to be able to do things in a different way. It's going to represent a new paradigm. We have to think about, like, what does it mean to actually have a duplicate of, or a twin of me that is awake when I'm not awake, mining my whatever or working on my whatever, what does that actually mean? And so there's going to be some new concepts that come up. And I put this last one, the sky's the limit. Like every time I look into this, there's somebody who's come up with some other new idea. And I hope to share some new ideas with everybody here. Some of the things we're doing at Helpshift to be like, oh, I never thought of that before. Oh, I never, and you know, there's going to be so many new things that come out that no one has ever thought of before. But when I break it down to, and this is what we were just talking about, is there is kind of two main concepts. One is the decentralized nature that the blockchain allows us to do. And that opens up some things around having decentralized assets, having a self-sovereign identity, which is a huge, to me, I think that's one of the huge advantages of the blockchain. And this one where I think Microsoft's actually taken a good approach on with, as compared to some other brands out there. But, and then the DAOs. In fact, and I'll talk about what we're doing at Helpshift as a DAO. So I think there's the decentralized part, and then there's the immersion part, which is all the experiences. Is it going to be VR? Is it going to be AR? Is it going to just be MR? Having a world that is there all the time, not just when you log on, but is there continually to grow and things like that. So there's that aspect to it. On the decentralized, so just to touch on this a little bit, and I just put this in here. I wasn't sure if everyone, you know, like kind of where we all, you know, just our understanding was when we say decentralized, because we just say, oh, it's decentralized. What does that mean? So I drew up these two diagrams to be like, okay, this is the world of today, and this is the world I knew about. Like I was on the team that had the first directory at Microsoft. It started actually, Exchange was the one that had the first directory, and then they ported it over to NT and it became Active Directory. And this concept of having a central repository of everybody in your company was like, wow, that's so innovative. But then that grew up to be, of course, you know, Live came out. And so then you had these internet identities, and then Google came out and you had all of these big directories of you know, all of these identities. And someone's like, well, we need to connect them. So then you get federated identities where you have kind of two central repositories, but they're kind of sharing secrets so that you can be like, okay, we have, that's the world that I grew up in. In the world of the metaverse, everything's like, there is no central authority. Everybody knows that, okay, I have this token that says that I can validate that I am who I say I am. Okay, and somebody else has verified that I'm older than 18. And that's what's known. And as long as I can present my token and the blockchain can show that I was once verified to be over 18, then that's all that anybody needs to know. They don't need to know anything else. And there's no real central authority. It's all completely decentralized.
Think about after it's a peer-to-peer type of.
It started. It's similar to peer-to-peer, but it's I would call it more of a shared. But yeah, essentially the way the blockchain works is that there's a number of people who work in the blockchain that participate in the blockchain, and when something is written to the blockchain, and this is the NF part, non-fungible, then you can prove if that ever changed. So if it says Erik, or you know, let's call my ID EA1, EA1 has token XYZ, and that's put into the blockchain. Everybody knows that I'm EA1 and that I have token XYZ. And I can even show my, you know, one of my keys, and I can say, look, you can see this is my key that I have, and you can see that's my token, so you can then verify me. And if you don't trust it, you can go over and ask somebody else. You can go ask Christian. Christian
Well,
says, yeah, that's it.
That's the thing that makes it the blockchain, is that we have this math-based cipher.
Yeah.
That represents the key that is EA1, and you've got a copy of it, you've got a copy of it, you've got a copy of it, and we can all compare.
And we can all compare. Yeah.
From a security standpoint, an individual can be compromised, but that's like one node. They can't then go into the
Can't go
blockchain and do anything because everybody else would have to like agree with like the.
Yeah. So if somebody hacked Christian and said, okay, well, like Erik, that's not really Erik or whatever, I'd be like, yeah, but look, you know, they all say it's Erik, so you can actually go and compare and say, yeah, you were hacked, and then that gets dropped in.
The alternative model is right now, I give Amazon a 16-digit number, and they go and check with one authority. They say, hey, this is Visa. Does he have that money? It's only that one place that you do that. If I were going to do a blockchain, then the merchant can check here, 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 or here and do the public-private key and say, yeah, he does have that money. And then they make an entry in the blockchain to say, okay, he spent that money here, and that gets replicated everywhere.
all the way around. And we didn't need Visa. And we did, and that's the power, is that we don't need Visa to do it.
So the question
We as
in my
a
mind
community
there
can do it.
becomes, do we have enough people that are willing to trust Visa that it will become the de facto standard for money transactions in this new future? Or will we have enough people that
Well-
don't trust Visa that we do it all on NFTs?
Well, and here's the thing, these guys over here, they have a lot to lose, right? And so that's where, this is where I think you're gonna end up with a hybrid. Okay, you are absolutely gonna have a, you know, the blockchain, because they're gonna wanna do that, but these guys over here are gonna say, well, wait a second, we're either gonna become a verifier, so we'll validate that these things actually happen the way that they're supposed to happen, or we'll tell the blockchain that says, hey, look, you can also come to us and we'll be able to validate it or whatever.
So the
So
guys
this is-
like, the guys like Josh that are anti-government, anti-society, anti-whatever, will do that side. And the guys like me that are too stupid to care, we'll just give the Visa number.
And this is, if you take a look at Microsoft, this is sort of the approach that they're taking. They're saying, look, we know that we have our federated identity, but we're also starting to support this and they'll be compatible. And this is kind of where I see that this works. And what's interesting about this, you know, I've been talking about identity. This works with assets, this works with services, this works with, and this new concept, distributed organizations. You know, you've heard DAO, which is decentralized autonomous organizations. What that is a set of business rules or a set of business logic to drive a set of transactions. So if you're like, okay, we want to make a way that we can buy things or sell things, then you can have this set of business rules of here's how the transactions work. Then that gets put on the blockchain, and now you have a way to have your own economy. And so very powerful things that this allows us to do. And that's kind of the first major shift. The second shift is the experience shift, which we were talking about earlier, where you've got, you know, you have on one side the gaming, you know, and so you're seeing this kind of really push the industry forward. You've got the VR, you have the mixed reality, you have things like Sandbox here, or you have the Niantic, which is doing the augmented reality. And then on the business side, they're coming up with, you know, a lot of experiences. I think personally, I think this is probably the one that's closest, is the augmented reality in a workforce, because it really is so lightweight. You've got your phone, you bring up your phone, you hold it up to the machine that you're trying to work on, and right there it starts, you know, it tells you about it and things like that. So, you know, imagine, you know, I need to jump my car. You know, I've got to jump my car, and I open up the hood, I bring out my phone, and immediately shows me, here's the place to plug it in. Oh, okay. You know,
So
plug it in.
your picture in the upper right-hand corner.
This one came from Microsoft, by the way. This was an example.
So that's Teams.
Yeah, this is Teams.
That's the standard 3x3 grid. And they came out with the whole gallery view where you could be in the aquarium or at Mount
You can-
Rushmore.
Yeah.
Does anybody use that, or do we all just do the grids?
Let's get it grid.
Yeah. Kind of interesting.
Once in a while.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a toy almost. And this is what we do when we want to work. That's interesting, because to me, that says that there might be some inertia
There is, yeah.
against going full VR.
I think there is. I think there is, but there will be,
Not inertia, but resistance, because we're all used to this 9x9 or 15x15 grid where we're all in a chessboard.
Yeah.
And so there might be some
and
movement to get that into a VR mode.
this is kind of my point, is that I don't think it's going to be like we're jumping right into the VR world. I think what you're going to see is start mixing of it. You know, those
So
things.
one thing is that, you know, there was such a pushback against Google with the Google Glass and the AR type
Yeah.
capabilities. And there's, apparently it's coming back. I'm not up to the latest. They're bringing it back because so many people are like, hey, actually, I understand now where this could fit. However, then you're still buying another device, a wearable device. The ability to look up, just like that scenario on your phone, exactly the scenario that you have. And then Microsoft had two solutions that were AR solutions that they talked about. And for a lot of people, and I wish Noah was here so I could pick on him a bit, but because he's like so gung ho in the VR, and I've always, whenever he brings it up, I just try to shoot him down as harshly as possible on it. But I said, but here are actual AR, like real world solutions.
Absolutely.
Where it's not just talking about something. Now, I've seen some stuff in the education world, which again are fantastic. And even though it's rudimentary and you need to have an E7 to get legs for your avatar, that part I don't understand either. That's a joke.
It's an E11.
It's
E7, come on. Anyway, I mean, there's some great scenarios there, but the reality of things like wearing the glasses or looking at your phone, for the phone to know my profile, know my location. I'm walking down, like, remember those things we had called malls? I think there's some of them still out there. But you're walking through the mall, it knows what coupons I have, what credits, and it actually could do like through my phone or through the Google Glass, the path to the store where I have the discount, where I want to go.
Yeah.
I mean,
And
those kinds of scenarios, which are similar to Microsoft with their, kind of manufacturing, the factory, review with the tie-in to IoT and monitoring. And like they used the example, it was what, 3 Inspires back or whatever they showcased that. It was in-person Inspire. I think was the last time I saw it, where they did in the demo where they said, okay, you've got this 2-ton piece of equipment you have to move into the factory. So walking around, it knew the specs of that and using the headset was able to say, oh, it'll fit there. However, can we even get it down the aisle to put it in the location? So he was actually walking and was able to determine the right path to bring the equipment in based on this AR.
So when I walk into Walmart today, okay, I have my phone. I launched the Walmart app. The Walmart app actually knows that I'm in Walmart. It immediately knows that I'm in Walmart already, just because I happen to launch the app and it takes my location of that. Because of that, it puts my Walmart app automatically in shopping mode. I walk up to the bananas. I take my phone, I point it at the bananas. It scans already the bananas and I'm able to put the bananas in my cart already prepaid for it. Now, they haven't taken the leap yet of being able to give me coupons, but that's going to be the next thing that they're going to do. They haven't taken the leap yet of having to direct me because they know I'm there for bananas, because that's always what I come to. But that's the way that this technology starts to evolve. It has my location, it knows who I am, it knows what I'm doing, it has all of that. And either that's in the real world, I'm in the physical Walmart, or I'm in the virtual world. Same thing. I'm in now the virtual Walmart. And it then will do the exact same thing. And that's where this starts to mix. And that's why I'm saying that this is where we're seeing the evolution of
And
this.
talk about, Christian saying it won't be in our lifetime, but look at what COVID did for online ordering of groceries and delivery and Zoom and GoToMeeting.
So Ron, you're saying that the next pandemic will enable us to
There's a
travel to interplanetary.
There's a catalyst coming that will probably push that.
Well, so we all talked about, we all want to work from home 5 days a week. And our bosses all said, that'll never work. And it wouldn't work until it had to work. And as soon as it had to work, and so what you're saying is that when we find the use case where this has to work, then it'll work.
A couple examples. Haas Group, they're an advertising, pretty big, large advertising firm. They've got 68 physical locations. Their 69th was a virtual location that they built, where you can actually go in, you can meet with them, you can work on their designs, and you can have, like, it was just a virtual place that they brought up inside of Sandbox. Sandbox is the place that they're looking through that. Soul decided to create a virtual government place. And they did it initially because they wanted it to make it easier for people to come visit. Instead of actually coming down to their offices, they said, well, let's have this place that you can come in and visit it to make it easy for citizens to connect or to deal with the parking and things like that. But now that they have it, they've actually said, well, look, we could use this for co-working space. We can actually use this for business development or also tourism. So they've added some kind of tourist features to this. And so these are things that are starting to happen. And there's more and more and more and more of these that are happening, all of the time, where people are looking at this. Go back to my first slide, because there's the driver behind it. There's the catalyst that is making this, that's going to make this happen.
Is everybody aware of what Microsoft is doing with events?
I never aware of what Microsoft's doing. When they do
So
it.
they're basically, so we have Ignite coming up and there's gonna be, what, 3,000, 4,000 in Seattle? They're creating hybrid, but it will always be very low. My understanding is that they never plan on going back to what it was pre-pandemic.
Yeah.
Events.
No more 30,000 person in the hall.
Nope.
Well, Ignite is just keynotes. Everything else is
Right.
recorded.
Correct. But they're digitizing everything so that there will be a true hybrid experience, that there will be, I don't know what it's gonna look like. I just, again,
Yeah.
heard some stuff, but they're doing like investing in applications and tablets. And so people walking around doing stuff. So they won't have the regular booth that like everybody in a booth in the expo hall, whatever that looks like, will be there with digital stuff and be able to, let me just send it to you right here. That they're completely pushing towards this future vision of it. So it'll be interesting to look at what else that they do, because of course they're invested heavily in.
Yeah, they are, yeah. And of course, Facebook and all of these other ones. Let me actually introduce you now to what we're doing at Helpshift, because I've talked about the metaverse and things like that. Let me talk a little bit about my company. And we have a project that which is called MetaShift, what we're doing. Just so that everyone understands who we are and what we do. We provide in-app software that provides in-app customer service. So if you open up an app and you have a problem, you can go inside that app and you can click on Get Help. And then our software will run so that you can have FAQs, you can get some self-help, or you can chat with us, and you can actually talk to a customer support representative. That's what we do. We're on over 3 billion devices today. And since we started on mobile, most of the apps that we're in are gaming apps. We're in the largest gaming apps that are out there: Clash of Clans, Clash Royale, Pokemon Go. Any of those apps use Helpshift. And
So as long as the problem is I can't get the game to launch.
Well, even with that, there's still a way to do that. But the whole idea of the reason why this was so interesting to us is we're like, if you're in an app and you have a problem, why leave the app and go to Facebook or go to WhatsApp or go to a web page? Stay in the app and get your problem fixed. If you're shopping, you don't want to leave the shopping experience to figure out, why you're not getting your refunded. So, or why you're not getting your discount or whatever. So that's what we've done. That's who we are. And so for us, the concept of having support in the metaverse, to us, it's just very natural. Of like, there's going to be problems in the metaverse. It's all new. We just talked about the new, decentralized experiences that we have, or the new virtual experiences that we have. It's all new for everybody. And so there's going to be problems. And so we feel that if there's problems, someone's going to need to fix them, and they're going to need tools to be able to fix that. So that's where we're making our bet, is we want to come in to help do that. We want to provide an easy way for brands to be able to help their consumers so that they can stay in the experience, so they don't have to leave. So if you have your goggles on, you actually can go up to a kiosk that's made by us, and you can get support by that. Or if you're in an augmented reality, you don't have to leave. Like, imagine that you happen to be walking into Walmart in an augmented reality and you have a problem. There should be a kiosk there that you can just click on and just like, okay, we can help you out. And so we want to be able to do that. We want to make it all immersive, and we want to be able to do it at scale. So that's where we are with this. And I'll just introduce kind of the first three things we have. The first one is a virtual kiosk. And I'll just show you the example of this. Imagine that you're in a virtual space, and it also works in a real space. And we have all of this technology patented. And so let's say I'm in a mall and I want to actually go buy some avatars. And as I go into this mall, I'm going into the avatar store. Maybe I'm a VIP. First off, we already know exactly where you're at. Like, we know that you're in a store. We know the context about who you are. But I'm going to go up to the VIP place, and I'm going to be like, okay, I want to buy an avatar, but there's nothing there. That's my problem. And I can see all the other avatars, but I can't actually buy an avatar. So if I turn around though, in the store, this is where Helpshift will come in. This is me being frustrated. there can actually be an object that you can just plant, just drop it into the metaverse. This is Helpshift. And when you go up to it, this object then recognizes you, knows that you're here in this store, and then now can give you support. And it has the voice to text technology, so I can actually talk to it, ask it a question. Look, where's my VIP avatars? And then it has AI to be able to go in and determine, hey, look, this is where you can get it. Or if it needed to be a human, I would actually transition, and then I would see the human standing up there and being able to do that. And I did this without ever having to leave the experience. I didn't have to go back to a website or, go in, type in, hey, look, I was trying to buy something. It was all part of the experience. And we think in these immersive experiences, that's super important to be able to do that. And so that is the first technology that we're working on right now, is being able to do that. The second thing that we're doing is we're leveraging the blockchain as part of support, so that when you go in and you go into a support situation where you're like, okay, look, I was looking at my checking account and I saw that there's $10,000 missing out of my checking account. So I contact the agent. Well, the agent needs to know, who are you? Are you really this person that lost this $10,000? What was the transaction that did that? And so, or, in a virtual environment, maybe it's some virtual land that got sold or things like that. So we want to be able to offer all of the information that's on the blockchain to that support agent, so they can actually go and see what's actually going on, so that they can trust the conversation and they know what's actually happening or what happened, and so that they have all that information. Currently, no support tools out there actually have access to the blockchain. So that's what we want to be able to do, is give support organizations access to that.
So that's the replacement for what's the last 4 digits of your social?
Yeah, what's the last 4 digits of the Social Security? And we actually have gaming companies today that are working with us on this. Like I said, we're since we're so big in gaming, what they're going to do is that when somebody gets to a certain level, they're just going to issue an NFT. They're going to say, look, you get this gold diamond NFT that we have. And so now if you come into support, all you have to do is present that NFT. They don't care who you are. They don't care what your name is or whatever. They're like, you have the gold diamond, therefore you have made the gold diamond level, and we're going to treat you as such. And so because we're going to allow the support of the blockchain, we let them, the support organization, this is a gold diamond, you treat them as a gold diamond, whatever that is.
I'm the anti-blockchain in this world. And so the gold diamond could easily exist just inside the gaming company server.
It could.
But because it's a blockchain, that gives them the ability for you to authenticate that user's identity.
Exactly.
Without having access to their database.
It's a database. And that's exactly, because what happens today, and it happens all the time. Someone will come in and they'll say, oh, I'm Christian. And then,
nobody would ever say that.
well, but
It's a hypothetical.
that's actually, they say I'm C123, because they know C2123 is actually a gold diamond person. And they'll say, I'm C123, but I was unable to log in. And they'll try to, use human methods around that. They'll use social engineering. It happens all the time. And so now it'll be super easy. They'll be like, okay, great. But, I know that you're this, but you should have your wallet, because, you have your wallet everywhere else. Let's check your wallet. Let's check the blockchain. Are you really who you say you are? Or do you have your thing?
Well, the other scenario that happens all the time is you're talking about each of these silos, each of these master networks, they get hacked, and then all that information is in there and all that. So if that's distributed, then they can hack them and their system, but they have very limited user information.
Well, let's not pretend that blockchains are not hackable.
Well, I'm not saying that, but it's where
There's too many billions of dollars that have been stolen just in the last 30 days for us to say that.
Yeah, but there's a difference.
It's bad, everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Couldn't there be
There's-
a majority
Is
that
it?
skew the blockchain?
Because that never happens with fiat.
Well, and that's the thing, is that when we work with companies, right? We never, and you should never, especially when you're working with humans, have a single line of defense. This adds to their set of tools that they have when somebody comes in. And in fact, they typically will have their own database. They'll have their own authentication. Now they've got the NFT on top of that, and then they're able to add these up to build up, all right, what's the level of trust that I have with this person? So, so I'll introduce the third thing that I'm doing, that we're working on right now, which is actually taking a look at changing support so that support can be run in the metaverse as its own economy. So imagine today when you have a problem, what do? You go to a brand and you're like, okay, I have a problem. And then the brand takes your ticket and they try and fix it. Well, in the metaverse, in a distributed environment, you actually don't have to go to the brand. You can actually go to the metaverse and create an object. I have a problem. It's something that you have. It's actually a noun. And that object could be picked up by a consultant who says, well, let me try and help you with that problem. Or I can't solve it, so let me transfer it over to the company. Or let me,
You build an auction.
or let me auction for, right? Let me,
Here's my problem. And people say, I'll fix that for 3 golden tokens. I'll fix it for, and you can see their reputation.
you can see the reputation. And in fact, the company has already had to approve them to say, look, you could be one of the people. And then at the end of the month, then all of these people that solved all of these problems, they can take that back to the company and say, look, I solved 1,000 problems for you. Here they all are. You can see it on the blockchain. You can see it's been validated. You owe me $1,000.
Well, but you wouldn't even need to do that because if you're, even if it's plain old Visa, right? You put up, I've got a problem, and this kind of is the moonlighting thing. I've got this thing that needs to be fixed, and the people apply, I review their reputation, I pay them directly.
Yeah,
The company wouldn't have to exist at all, and in fact, if a company had gone out of business, let's say you're running an old version of WordPerfect, and WordPerfect isn't around.
Yeah, you can get paid by the consumer, or you can get paid by the brand, depending on it. But that's the point, is that now that we have a distributed system that we can do that. And so all of the things that you're seeing here, I know this is being recorded, these have all been patented and are things that we're working on in this new world,
There's
because
other countries we could go and steal your idea.
you could. I won't tell you all the places we have our patents, but yeah, but this
is a blockchain. I'll just go read it.
So anyways, I think we're actually pretty much at time. And we were going to have a discussion about, how do we prepare for this? But I think we've talked a lot about that throughout this. But appreciate you guys taking the time and let me share a little bit about the metaverse. So do we want to take some more time? Or, I mean, it's 5:30 right now, so I'm not too.
Let's ask if there's anybody online that is brave enough to come off mute and ask a question. We'll give you 30 seconds. Takes a minute to find the mute button.
One person online, I swear.
That's my problem.
Yeah. Anybody else in the room have a question? In spite of my dislike of the whole, we're going to use a blockchain for everything.
Yeah, and I don't think that a blockchain is the answer to everything, but it does open up some new.
Yeah, well,
I was just thinking 5 years, we need to watch this video again and see, where are we?
Where are we? Yes,
That's what
absolutely.
we thought.
I mean, this is a separate topic of blockchain. I mean, the things that I think are incredibly powerful about it is the blockchain is driving the fractional investing capability.
Yes.
It is the online marketplaces making them not just safer overall, because everything we hear about the blockchain is still a hell of a lot safer than we don't hear about so many of these other systems that are compromised. But just the ability to go in, like you see all these services. I just saw another one where a company was marketing the fact that you can go and invest in famous artwork and you can buy a 0.0001% of that famous painting and own it. And yeah, so that it's a blockchain enabled technology. How it is changing the way that we can have access to all these systems, where you had to have been, you had to buy,
Well, the thing that a blockchain does is it allows you to do something like that in the absence of trust. If IBM wanted to do that and set up their own IBM database and their own,
correct.
then we could do that, but we'd be dependent on IBM to stick around.
Correct. For fractional investing, it's been around since ETFs.
Yeah.
Sure.
20 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, but those all you're relying on Schwab. or-
Exactly, yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yes, they're too big to fail, so they're not gonna go away, but the one thing that the blockchain does is it makes it so that you don't have to trust any one individual.
It democratizes that.
That's the word. I was using freedom. I should have used the
Yeah.
word democracy. And that to me is why I come back to the first three core principles why I think there's going to be the changes. Is the fact that this is driving democratization of this technology, the fact that there is an economy behind it, and the fact that it's being driven by these immersive experiences. Those are three very powerful driving forces, and they're coming together.
One of the problems with it, it's like, it's almost like bad marketing around it, because all the hype, all the people, like the early investors, I always looked at it and I said, like, I don't care about all of that. I mean, NFTs, I still do this, is stupid. It is just stupid. I was like, but I was like, hey, Dogecoin, I made money off of Dogecoin. I don't know if anybody else did, but I did. I did about 5x my investment.
Okay, everybody together, let's.
But it's really, I look at it from an infrastructure standpoint, it's a huge leap forward.
Well, so in my ever so humble, never expressed opinion, blockchain is a decent technology that we're using to solve the wrong problems.
It's probably.
And it will eventually, we'll find the right problem. to
Exactly.
apply.
I agree with that.
I completely agree with that. And this was the argument that I was having with that I mentioned right at the very beginning, where my daughter was like, you know, NFTs and blockchains are dumb because you can buy a pink monkey for $10,000. And right. And I'm like, yes, that's dumb people right now that are just exploiting
You
it.
know, it's also done this my house in Duval, so it's $1.4 million. That's stupid
That's
too.
stupid. But what happens is that, and this is where the democratization comes in. Eventually, the market pressures went out, the stupid art, people are gonna realize it's not valuable, but then they're gonna say, well, wait a second. There's actually value in solving people's problems with, this. And then that's when business gets involved and other people get involved, then it starts to move forward. So I always go back to the core fundamentals. What are the drivers? Are those really strong driving forces? And in this case, you've got three strong drivers. What are the technology? You've got the technology behind it that's never existed before. You've got the power in your hands with these devices. You've got the blockchain, you've got the network. You've kind of got all of this coming together at the right time. This evolution will happen. Now, exactly what it'll be, if it'll be what Mark says, I don't think so, but it will happen.
So I watched a video this morning from 1974. It was Isaac Asimov. He was being interviewed, standing in front of a big computer of the time. In 1974, he said, well, by the time you're my age, so the young kid that was there, this will be a little compact device on your desktop, and you will talk to it. And it will make it so that executives can do their business wherever they happen to be. They won't all have to live in the same place. They won't all have to come into the office, right? And so my question is, what was that, 50 years ago? In 50 years, are we going to refer back to this and say, look, here it is. Eric figured it all out.
I hope so.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. I would propose, we're going to turn the recording off. And then those of you that are interested will stick around and plan the SharePoint Saturday and Friday for February. And eat a cookie. Oh, and I think, Christian, is that swag that you brought there that you want?
That is stickers and buttons.
So if you want stickers and buttons that say Christian, they're right.
Some of them do. There's clippy pins that are in there as well. 3 dots, much sought after clippy pins.
Yes, nostalgic, evil little.
So the metaverse is kind of like